Welcome to this LinkedIn audio podcast. Right. So the topic today is the perfect CSM, what it takes to manage customers at every stage. We will talk about growth and we'll talk about a lot of other exciting things. With me is Luke Ferrel, Global Head of Customer Success at Deel. He's an Air Force veteran and has spent the past decade leading customer success teams at Qualtrics, Outreach, and other places. His passion lies in exploring worldwide growth opportunities within customer success and developing customer maturity frameworks. Welcome, Luke. It's great to have you today.
Yeah, it's great to be connected.
Right. This is going to be exciting. So, just tell us a little bit about your experiences right now. Like, how did you get into customer success, and what does that role look like right now at Deel? What does the day look like?
Yeah, my journey into customer success was actually interesting. So I started my career in the Air Force, but then I kind of fell backwards into tech, and I was in operations. And I mean this as no slight to operations, but like in the Air Force, you kind of limit your career unless you're a war fighter. Like you have to be fighting the war. And I feel like in SaaS tech, I felt like my career would be limited unless I was touching revenue or product. And so I thought, like, how far into revenue do I want to go? And customer success felt like a great fit. So when I was at Qualtrics, I had my background is math and stats. We didn't have an ops team for CS. And so I went and talked to our then VP of CS and said, hey, I'll build you an ops team if you teach me how to CS. And so that's how I kind of got my start. And it was very fortunate. And so I got to accelerate my career by doing that.
Awesome. I mean, this is super exciting. You said you wanted to touch revenues, right?
Yeah.
So, like, people think about go-to-market, and unless you're like a seasoned veteran in SaaS, people are like, oh, it's all about net new revenue. Whereas companies who have gone to unicorn status, and you've worked with like multiple of those, Qualtrics, Outreach, Deel, all of them, right? Like 50% of your net new revenue starts coming from your existing customers.
Yeah.
Right. So can you talk a little bit more about like that part?
Yeah, especially as you get larger, it's more and more important. Like your minor percentage points on churn super matter, right? Like if you're $1 billion company and you change your churn from 4% to 5%, it's meaningful. But it also goes the other way. And so when you have 20,000 customers, if you can get each of those customers to expand 10%, well, like you almost don't need a sales team. Don't tell my sales friends that. But at the end of the day, like my goal as a CS leader is to be able to go to my CFO and say, for every dollar you give me, I'm going to give you $2 back. And so you do that, one, through retaining clients that otherwise would have churned, and then two, by expanding those clients. And so at the end of the day, CS is a revenue center, not a cost center. No one wants to be a cost center.
Great. And let's deep dive into this, right? So what does the typical day look like, and how are you managing these upsell and retention metrics on a daily, weekly, monthly basis?
Yeah, I mean, for me anyway, a typical day, like we'll have a lot of calls to action to our CS team. So we'll look at a lot of data and we'll see things that we know generally leads to upsell. So for us, we're in the contractor and the employer of record space, which is essentially saying, if you don't have a legal entity in Brazil, but you want to hire Brazilians, you could hire through us. And then there's compliance that goes with that. So a lot of folks will be on a contractor product, which is a little bit cheaper product. But if someone has been a contractor for over a year, there's a problem of possibly them being misclassified, and you're opening yourself up to litigation. And so like when we get close to that, we'll ping our team and we'll say, hey, go talk to these customers about possibly moving to our employer of record product. What's great is that it doesn't come off as like, hey, we're trying to get money. It's helpful to the customer, but it also gives us an opportunity to have an expansion conversation.
Right. So basically the contractor is moving to EOR. Actually, we are a customer of Deel. And so we have both. We have contractors and we have EOR. So I hear you.
Good. Yeah. Text me if you ever need anything. We're going to make sure you're a happy customer.
Absolutely. So that's interesting. Now, also like share of wallet, right? Like how do you like justify to them saying, why should I not set up my own entity if I have, let's say, 10, 15 employees versus going via Deel? So like those kind of conversations, and if customers are growing bigger and they're like, hey, we want to move out, on the customer success side, how do you retain them?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's interesting because employer record is such a strong, valuable product, but I do think there's a point, you're usually, there are extenuating circumstances because it's not just like the SaaS fee that you're charged, $599 per employee. It's also like there are tax implications. There are also managing your own entity is a lot of work, and so you have to decide to do that. But let's take it to the extreme and say you have 10,000 people in Germany. Like at some point, it probably makes sense to establish your entity. And so that's why we've transitioned over the last year to be really about your international HR, like your one-stop shop for international HR. And so usually if people have EOR all over the world, we pay them. But if you establish your own entity, then you're going to need like a local payroll provider or another payroll provider. The average international company has over 6 local payroll providers. So we've established global payroll where we can pay these folks. You use one provider and it aggregates everything. So it's interesting as we've grown and we've moved from a single product to now multi-product, is that it plays a huge part in the customer journey.
How much of an influence you guys have on like basically giving product inputs and influencing what the product build would be or the product roadmap would be over the next 6 months, 12 months, 18 months?
Yeah, I think in any really strong company, it's got to be huge. I know at Deel, like we have a huge input. And what's great is like, it's not my job to sit and think about what customers want. It's my job to go and talk to our customers and find out what they want. And that actually makes it a lot easier because I'm really aggregating data and having a conversation with products based around data. So we've set up a really strong framework where we file issues when customers want something. We use Jira to track it all. We file issues. And then when we see problems that are causing customer pain, we file risks. And then it's easy to aggregate up all of the customer pain or customer requests. And then we can prioritize and build a product roadmap. And our product team is phenomenal and they push it so fast.
Also, you worked at Outreach before this, Luke. So what are some of the similarities and differences you saw between the customer success team there versus now at Deel?
Yeah, similarities is like a lot of care and willing to get your hands dirty. Like I think to be a really good CSM, you have to be willing to put your hands on product. Sometimes in other places that I've been, it's been like, hey, we're an advisor, we don't touch product. I think that's like, and maybe that's probably something that you can do with maturity. If you're at salesforce.com, you probably have a CSM and then you probably have a technical account manager who's going to actually configure the account. But I think when you're earlier in your maturity, you have to be a product expert as well, not just a domain expert. So I think that was similar. Differences, I think like one thing that we do here that I love at Deel is we report to the COO organization. So we're in the operations organization. And I like that because so much of what constitutes customer experience is operations. And so like we can say, hey, we need this from support. And then we move together. And that's really good. I don't think CSOs always sit in operations, but I like it.
Customer success team needs to be very, very hands-on with product.
Yep.
And I think that's something which I've seen great customer success teams are like deep into it. They give active feedback to product. And those who are not tend to at some point basically drop the ball. So this is super interesting. And you're saying it should report into the ops team, but CROs would be like, hey, there is an upsell target. Why ops? Why not us?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like there's an argument to be made both ways. The reason I like ops is because at the end of the day, what I really care about is customer experience. And I think that so much of customer experience is dependent on back-end things. Like support has to be on point for a customer to be really happy. For us, like we have HR and legal experts. We have to be coordinating very closely with those folks. And if anybody drops the ball, it creates a poor customer experience. And so it's nice when my boss, our COO, Dan Westgarth, he owns all of that. And so we can have a more cohesive experience. I think that matters. And then I do think that you should have OKRs for expansion. and those should roll to the CRO.
Right.
And that should be in their revenue plan. But I like reporting to the COO so that he can have like a cohesive view. Some people would call that like the chief, the CXO or whatever. But in our org, it's a COO. But you also better believe like I'm talking to the CRO about our numbers and she cares deeply.
What is your thought or what is your take in terms of upsell? Should the CRO org send some AE to do the upsell, or should the CS team themselves do the upsell? Like, who's responsible for the upsell?
Yeah, I'm a big believer that the CS org should create and discover opportunities and not necessarily close those opportunities. They should go to sales. I almost think of it like an SDR. Like when I'm talking to customers, I should be talking to them about the maturity of their HR practice. And as I talk to them, there will naturally come up opportunities where they're going to say, oh, we're paying 10 people in Belgium and we don't quite know how to do that. Then I should say, oh, cool, we've got a global payroll solution. I should be able to talk at a high level about that. And then I should create an opportunity in Salesforce or whatever CRM you use or however you manage your opportunities, and then kick it to an AE to go close that opportunity. I'm not great. My team is not great at like commercial closing opportunities. And we want to have that trusted relationship with the CSM. I mean, with our stakeholder as the CSM. And so I think separating it out like that works. That's something that you probably can do as you have more scale. When you're like a Series A, I do think the CSM should be closing the business.
Very interesting. Again, this is a question which I always get split answers on, which is like, who should be closing? And now this makes sense. Why COO versus CRO? Because you're like, hey, we are responsible. We'll generate the opportunities. We'll hand it over to the sales team. They will close. So probably you can be.
And I also want to reward my CSMs on that. I want to be able to say like, hey, you created this opportunity to close. Like, I'm going to spiff you.
Right. And that brings us to another question, which is, what is the comp plan? Like, great CSMs, how do you structure it so that they are motivated? What does the comp plan look like?
Yeah, generally I go like 60 or 70% is on retention, and we set a retention goal, and then 30, 40% on expansion, which forces like your CSM and your AE to work together. We've done something really cool at Deel. It's the first time I've done it, and I think I really love it. One of the problems as a CSM is like you never win, you only don't lose, right? Like it's like being a keeper in football or soccer. It's like if you stop every shot, you just did your job. So if you don't have customers churn, all you did was your job. And any time a customer churns, like you lost. And so I think like it can be hard to be a CSM because of that. And so we created, we call it Golden Deel, and it's been great. But essentially what we did is we worked with our product team and we said, what are our differentiating features? What are all the features that matter? And what are the things that we hypothesize drive customer value? So we put all those things together, and then we assigned just basically like a point to each of these things. And then we went to our customers, not our customers, we built like dashboards so we could see which customers were using all these things. And what's crazy is we have about 20,000 customers, and not very many of them were using like all these differentiating, really cool free features that we've developed. So we have this really robust platform, and people are using it as a point solution. Right. So we said, okay, CSMs, if your customer has over 10 points, we're going to consider them a golden customer. And if over 25% of your portfolio is golden, then we're going to give you $1,000 one-time bonus, and we're going to give you $400 recurring every month that portfolio is 25% golden. 50% would go to $800, 75% would go to $1,200. So now that gives the CSM, when the CSM doesn't have escalations and doesn't have things that are happening, now they have something to go do, to go attack, because you're often on the defensive and you're ad hoc and you're reactive. So now you can say, I'm going to go push all these things, and there's a reward in it for me. I can go win. And then that drives all of our, drives a lot of retention. If you've pulled the data, like retention and growth, because people are deep in the platform now.
This is brilliant. Like, honestly, this is one of the best models I've heard of on the customer success side, where you're saying you're aligning it so deeply with product that you're saying any cool features which product team wants you to push and you think will probably increase stickiness if they start using it, you're incentivizing your customer success team based on that with one-time and regular recurring bonuses.
Yeah, well, and what's great about it is at first we started out was we just had like a point for everything. We don't know. But now like we do simple regression analysis where you can say, okay, these features really matter. Maybe they're 2 points. Maybe they're 3 points. And so it incentivizes also our product team. Like if you want to get your feature pushed, you need to make a really sticky feature. And then we'll double the points on it. And we'll talk about your feature all the time. So as a product leader, like you really want us doing that.
Very interesting. Okay. And how's it been doing for you? Like, have you seen some improvements based on this?
Yeah, there's a long way to go. Like there's always a long, long way to go. But I mean, what we've seen is we had like 0.8% of our revenue golden at the beginning. And we've been doing this for about a little over a quarter. And now we have 20% of our revenue golden.
Whoa, in a quarter.
Yeah. We've been pushing really hard. Maybe we had started it. We started it at the end of the year. I jumped the gun because I was excited about it. And then when you tie like the points to churn, essentially every point that a customer gets, and this is in the aggregate and maybe not 100% causal, right? Like there are other lurking variables, but in every point that a customer adds, their chances of churn drops in half.
Right. Obviously. That makes sense.
Yeah, right? Like if you're integrated with 5 other solutions, you're probably not going to churn.
Yes. I mean, it's like almost like the Facebook effect, right? Like where they said, if there are 7 users on the 7 friends of yours on the platform, this is early days when Chamat was like heading growth. If you have 7 friends on Facebook, your likelihood to churn exponentially declined. It's almost like they found that metric and you're finding different metrics saying, hey, if you start using these features of the product, you will have a direct impact on churn reduction.
Yeah. And what I love about it is it's not like the way it's positioned is not like, because we tried this and I'm speaking from all my mistakes, is like, I tried to say like, hey, go get them integrated because, it'll help us. But as we changed into this and kind of gamified it, now it's like, I'm trying to optimize your instance. I'm trying to make your experience way better. So it's super customer centric. It's great because sometimes I'll have like an escalation with a customer. Something goes wrong, didn't meet their expectations in some way. And often at the end of that escalation, I or a CSM is able to have a conversation with them because we have this framework and say, hey, and we're not going to say you have 2 points or whatever. That's too in the weeds. But I can say, I can look at it and I can see like they have 1 point or 2 points. And I can say to them, look, being honest, you're not using the platform to the full capabilities. What I would like to do is I would like to go do a deep platform audit, and I will tell you exactly how to set it up and what you need to do so you're getting the most value out of this. At the end of the day, that benefits the CSM, right? Because they're getting the customer golden, they're getting a bonus for it, but it really benefits the customer. And so you can use it as a recovery tactic as well.
Beautiful. And again, I'm jumping the gun there, but is there a way to incentivize the customer also to create that alignment, saying you do these things, obviously you get the results, but it's almost like because they will not churn, is there a benefit program you can come for the customer? Is like some kind of a community thing with some like passes. If you do it for 3 months consistently, we'll bring you to this event. Like some small giveaways for the customer also to be excited. Their teams.
I haven't thought through that yet. So there probably is, but I haven't thought through that. One thing that I want to do, and I've seen other companies doing this really well, and I want to start doing it, is they've started cohorting their customers. And so they'll get like their customers together and they'll be like, hey, we got a bunch of customers in the UK. Let's go have dinner. Or, you can also do it on Zoom and say, these types of customers are similar-ish. Let's get together and let's talk about how you're thinking about HR. It doesn't have to be deal-centric, right? Like you're a bunch of global HR leaders. Let's get together. And then as you do that, like those people connect, right? Yeah. And as those people connect and their common thread happens to be Deel, it's another connection point.
Community. How much of that community is owned by customer success team? And what's the customer success team's engagement or thoughts on community side? Effort, thoughts?
Yeah, community's really interesting. The place where I saw it done the best, honestly, was Qualtrics. Qualtrics has a phenomenal customer community. And we ran that out of support, actually. And so we originally started with, we would have a couple folks in there like answering questions, but really it was more to moderate and make sure that things were moving along because we wanted it to be very organic and to have different power users in there because that's where you really get the value. If you have 10 people sitting there answering things on your community, it's essentially like you're kind of doing support, maybe support at scale, but you're still doing support.
Right.
So it worked great at Qualtrics, and then we would get alerts when there were things that were concerning in the community, and so then in CS we would get them. We don't have a robust community now. It's something that I'm thinking about and working on, but I encourage anybody who's looking to do a community, go look at Qualtrics. It's really good.
Any one or two pointers which stick out, like in terms of saying what they did really well to build and engage the community?
They looked at like any type of questions that were going unanswered long term, and they would then ping power users and be like, "Hey, do you want to answer this?" And then they'd up like the value, kind of like a Reddit, up the value of somebody answering that question. So what was great about it is it stayed very organic, and it didn't just turn into Qualtrics moderator answering things, because then it's really like what you're building is a knowledge base. And a knowledge base I don't think is what you want out of a community.
Right. No, we had a session on community before, and there were some really good nuggets. But this whole thing on it has to be organic, and it cannot be just controlled. Or you are more like moderators, and the more participation you get from people on both sides, asking.
Yeah, imagine Reddit, where it's just like Reddit mod replies. Like it's not interesting. You're not making connections, but Reddit is so addictive because there are people in there and you get phenomenal answers. Like half the time when I am looking for an answer to something that I know is going to be a little bespoke, I'm going to search like how to change my brakes in my whatever model car -Reddit, because I know someone will have a walkthrough on there.
Right. And we are coming close to the end of the talk. So Luke, wanted to obviously hit on GenAI. Right, like there's this whole thing every day on how this is eating up jobs and automating a lot of stuff. CS is definitely on the radar, right? Like Amazon and other companies are like, hey, we have cut down our CS teams by X% because a lot of that thing can be automated now. How are you guys thinking about it? How are you thinking about adoption, fears, excitement? Like, talk to us about it.
Yeah, I think my framework is there are 4 levels of maturity in customer success. Wild West, 1. Then 2 is operational. 3 is advisory. And 4 is scale. And I think that there's an order to those. I think if you are living in the Wild West, where it's just like, I will do anything for my customer and I'm kind of pseudo support, I do think that GenAI will take your job. And I think that's great. Because then it allows you to move up the maturity chain where you can get into operational or you can get into advisory. Like I also think that a lot of people try and skip steps. Like sometimes you're a Series B company and you want to create margin. And so you say like, we're going to scale CS. Well, if you're a growth company and you're growing, delighting your customers is so much more valuable than having an extra margin point in your CS team. Maybe it's different if you're Adobe or Amazon or these big ones where you do need to scale. But until you're at scale, I don't think it's worth jeopardizing your customer's experience to push on scale. Also, if you haven't operationalized CS yet, you don't know what good is. You don't know which touch points need to happen, have a good effect, all of that. And so you're doing garbage in, garbage out.
Right. And so this is the operational side. And then you said you're a guide, you're a consultant. And then the fourth one was...
fourth one was scale. Yeah. Fourth one is like, now, then when you start to say like, I'm going to automate this whole process. Right. But I don't think you can do that unless you've done phase 2, which is operationalization, which means like every single interaction is tracked. You have a plan on what the customer path should look like. And then you can say, did we adhere to that? What happened? Which touch points brought actual value? Until you do that, I think scaling is a fool's errand.
Right. And so if someone was to ask you, like, have you got like any instructions from top management saying, hey, these are the goals in terms of increasing the efficiency of your customer success executives or managers, right? And for X number of customers, if there were so many people, like, has that metric moved in terms of more customers being handled by less people because you're adding a lot of efficiency using GenAI?
I haven't had that push yet. I can see how it would happen. Mine has just been like, use the same amount of resources and get better results. So let's say someone on average, I have a $4 million book. Well, now that $4 million book, instead of churning at 4%, should churn at 3%. So I think it depends on what phase you're at as a company. Like, we're very much in growth phase. So I'm not trying, like, we're profitable, it's great, but I'm not trying to squeeze margin points. I'm trying to delight customers.
Great. Sounds amazing. One last thing, right? Like, what are some of the tools which have helped you, not just AI, but like people use Pendo or other things? What are some of the tools which have helped you scale and which you swear by, saying, hey, I cannot operate without these tools?
Yeah, I think this is a little bit of my secret sauce. So I worry about I'm giving away too much here, but like, having a customer really engaged in your Slack or whatever, I think really matters. And it's when I was in the Air Force, like, we'd have vendors that would come be embedded in our squadron, and it made a huge, huge difference. And so the workspace for a lot of people is Slack. And so one of the tools that I've been using is Pylon. And it's great because not everybody's on Slack. And so we create an external channel, and then we use Pylon to go and link to Teams or whatever other messenger tool the customer is using internally. And so then we can manage all of our customers in Slack, and we become almost an embedded part of their team.
Interesting. Very interesting. We use Slack as well extensively. So you're saying if you get customers actively engaging with you on your Slack group, either through Pylon or directly, that has definitely seen.
Yeah. I mean, imagine, like, Karan, you have a problem with an EOR and we need to talk, and you can just Slack me.
Yes.
And then I get right back to you, and then it's a conversation instead of like, oh, I have to go raise an issue.
You know what? That's brilliant, because honestly, that was one thing from my side. I would love to get on this Slack channel because I email, and I just don't like emailing for customer success.
Yeah, come on. I need to get you a Slack channel with us. Let's set that up.
Yes, we'll definitely do this after this call. And we are on time. Look, this was brilliant. The 2 frameworks on the golden deal, that is like literally, it gave me goosebumps. And the other one, you talked about the maturity and saying how AI will take some parts away and some of the other parts become more valuable. I think those are brilliant. Can totally see why you're accelerating so fast and working with all these great companies. Best of luck, and we will be in touch.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.